Philip, talk to us about testing. We've been in the disease now for quite a long time, several months. And is there more than one test available? And if there is, which is the most cost-effective one and the most effective one?
Okay. It really depends on what you're trying to achieve. In terms of diagnosing someone with COVID, the most effective one that I've found in terms of availability and in terms of data that's slowly starting to trickle in, the most effective one is the current one that we're doing, which is called the PCR. So essentially what the PCR does, it's the swab either in the throat or the nose, and what it's looking for RNA, which is the genetic signature of the virus. But a word of caution is that the one limitation to this, it depends on when you test the person. And it's been found that people generally shed virus the most from about 3 days onwards, right up to 8 days. So you've got to be very careful about when someone is tested. You want to avoid testing someone too early where you may not pick up the virus and then you get what is called a false negative. And the other possible limitation to this is that with looking for the genetic signature, you can have bits and pieces of the genetic signature, the RNA, floating around in the system, and you pick it up after someone has had COVID. And then when a culture is done, it's when you take material with virus and you keep it in an environment where it can replicate, grow, then you find that there isn't any viable virus. So that's the other limitation to the PCR testing. So then there is antibody testing. And antibody testing, there are a number of antibody tests available around the world.
Is it a blood test?
It is a blood test. It is looking for either antibodies to current infection or antibodies that should we hope confers immunity. Now there are still questions around whether these tests can be used for one, diagnostic purposes, and two, to then assess whether there is herd immunity or to provide a what we call an immune passport, if you will.
I can imagine that's work ongoing.
Yes.
So we need a lot more data before we can confirm that.
Yes, we definitely do.
Yeah.
And those tests, at this point in time, a lot of the sources that I've seen are generally putting those tests, the scientists are putting those tests forward for more epidemiological study and not necessarily to be used in a clinical setting where you're looking after someone with COVID.
Let's say that you are confirmed as a COVID-19 patient, you go home, your symptoms are reasonably mild, so like a nice case of flu or whatever it might be. Despite the fact that you are quarantining for that 10-day period after you've been diagnosed.
Yes.
How long are you likely to feel ill for?
Well,
how long is a piece of string?
Yeah, it does become how long is this piece of string, because research is coming through now, which is now starting to group people into people who have a sort of a very short illness and then people who have a protracted sort of activation of their systems, where we don't know how far and how long it can go, but the current expectation is 14 days, but it's been found that around about 8 or 9 days people generally start tapering off in terms of how much virus they are producing and shedding and so forth. So the World Health Organization now has compromised, I think, at saying 10 days of isolation to protect the greater community. And
Yeah, we've stuck at St. Patrick's. We've actually stuck with 14 days, just to be on the safe side.
Yes.
I'm interested to know. So somebody in your family gets tested positive, and the whole family then self-isolates
Yes.
because of close contact.
Yes.
How do you treat the person who's got the COVID-19 in your home?
Yeah, this is this is a tricky one because we're social beings
Yeah.
and we care for
You
each
lock
other.
them up in a bedroom, or what do you do?
You know, ideally, we then need to keep them in a room where they will stay on their own in their bedroom. If it's possible, use their own bathroom. Utensils for eating,
So their own cup, their own plate.
correct.
Yeah.
If it's not possible to use the same, use own bathroom, you know, just be really careful about sanitizing the bathroom, having hand sanitizer, even if there are separate bathrooms, even if there are separate bedrooms, looking at making sure there's hand sanitizer, hand washing, mask wearing of the individual
In the home. Yeah.
Especially if they're going to open their bedroom door and leave their bedroom.
Okay, so life could change slightly.
Yeah, life could change.
Okay, I think you put that very clearly here, Philip.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. My last question to you today, Philip, is I know that scientists weren't really able to answer this question early in the pandemic. But now that we are well into it, at least in our country,
Yes.
talk to me a bit about the reinfection issues. Are you effectively immunized by having had the virus, or is there a flipping good chance you can get it a second time, or does it depend on how badly you've had it, or how mildly? What are the parameters at play when it comes to reinfection?
That is still
A debate.
A debate.
Yeah.
It's still a question in research. But one study that has been done in, I think, in Spain has found that there are two groups of people that they did study. They studied the asymptomatic to mild and found that the people who were asymptomatic to mild, the antibodies that they produced tended to be less than people who had moderate to severe disease. So there seems to be a difference in immune response in the two groups. And they've also, with mathematical models, this now not being on a wide scale in population studies, found that the models sort of predict that people who've had mild disease tend to have a tapering off of the antibodies in the system that is more rapid earlier than people who have had severe disease. So there is the suspicion that immunity is not guaranteed, but it is still a question that is in the air, and more research, and the scientists caution that more research is required.
So we actually are not 100% certain about that yet.
We're not 100% certain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that poses quite an interesting thought, because if by way of example, we don't find a vaccine before the middle of next year, people who have had COVID-19, unless the research starts clearly giving us indicators, need to be careful. There's no guarantee you're not going to get it the second time.
Yes.
So you can't just discard your mask and say, okay, well, I'm done with this now.
Yeah.
You've got to still keep safe.
You still got to keep safe. You still got to keep other people safe. You still got to keep your family safe. So until we have all these answers, caution
is going to be the order of the day.
Yeah.
Oh, Philip, what can I say? I've learned so much today. It's been a very useful conversation. And thank you for giving up your time. I know that you guys in the hospitals in Kokstad are busy right now. So, you know, my prayer for you is that you keep safe. And thank you for sharing your expertise with us today. We really appreciate it. And have a good day further. Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, great stuff. Okay.
Thank you.